in our list of the top 10 2-minute tips for the time challenged. You might have heard, perhaps, I'm not sure if you have, you might have heard of this unusual thing called the emotional freedom technique, or EFT. You can go on YouTube and learn about it. And when you look at some of the claims, it's one of these things that does seem a bit too good to be true, but there's actually a growing body of research that suggests that this fusion of intent, positive affirmation, and tapping on key acupuncture points can actually be remarkably effective. Now, it was originally developed to address phobias, which of course is many of us, there's people with spider phobias, or they're scared of heights or enclosed spaces and so forth. But then the technique was basically proven to combat a whole range of ailments, and it's particularly effective when used to counter stress. So we live in this crazy stress-filled world. I ask the question wherever I teach, I ask the question, how many of you can say in all honesty you don't feel stress and anxiety on a regular basis that you'd rather not feel? Who can tell me they're stress-free? I'm asking you that question. And in those rooms, no one even turns around. It's so bizarre, because you can have 200 people. No one turns around to see if there's anyone, because they kind of know that we've created this crazy, fucked up world where the most important thing we usually realize on our deathbed, we see life for what it is, and we say, oh my God, life is a measure of how much peace and harmony. A good life is how much peace and harmony you enjoyed during that short journey. And we've created this world where the opposite of peace and harmony is stress and anxiety, and we all live in this ocean of that stress. So any little tips can be handy. And farmers, of course, in a reasonably recent study, were identified as amongst the most stressed of all professionals. And we've talked about how many ways stress can kill. And so basically there's a gain in all of us reducing our anxiety levels. And here's how we could use this particular simple little strategy to achieve that. It basically involves the first two fingers on either hand, and you begin by tapping the point. And we're talking about key acupuncture points, and we're talking about tapping the point at the rate of 6 seconds per second, which is about this. It's quite quick. The point between your eyebrows. And while you're doing it, you make this declaration out loud. Even though I'm suffering from stress that I'd rather not feel, I love and deeply accept myself. And then you move to the outside corner of your eyes, and you can do it with both eyes, outside corner of your eyes, and you do that same quite quick tapping. And you repeat, even though I'm suffering from stress I'd rather not feel, I love and deeply accept myself. And then you move to the spot below either eyes, tapping and repeating the statement of your intent and affirmation. Even though I'm suffering from stress, I'd rather not feel, I love and deeply accept myself. Then you tap below your nose. You just do this with one hand, I'll do it with that one. And you repeat the same statement. And then you tap on the center of your chin. Same story, repeat the statement. And then you basically move from there to a spot on your collarbone, both hands if you choose, while you repeat that statement. And then basically underneath your arm, parallel to your nipples, and you tap on that spot. Now you do 3 rounds, and that takes 2 minutes, usually maybe 2.5 minutes. And before you start, I should have done it before I did that little sample, you basically say, well, how do I feel? How stressed am I? I'm actually reasonably relaxed out here at the farm at the moment, but even though I've had 2 cups of coffee and speaking quicker than normal, but rank your stress, say, where am I out of 10? And basically then check, do I feel different? And actually I do, even from that little bit. And then basically repeat that again, do another 3 rounds and see if you can drop your stress down to 2 or whatever. It really seems, and test it yourself, it's a real simple thing to check and see if you see anything to it. It really seems like the stimulation of key acupuncture points, key pressure points, while stating your intent to reduce stress and the message of love to yourself, people lack self-love. So you're trying to, it kind of appears to trigger the brain to step in and solve the problem. It really is kind of the essence of mind-body medicine, or what's now called psychoneuroimmunology. So give that a try. Tap your stress away. Now, during the earthquakes in Christchurch, I mean, it was a horror show for people, quite honestly, because the aftershakes went on for months, and they were serious aftershakes. You would be in a 3-story building and hiding under your desk 4 or 5 times a day, and the stress levels were phenomenal. And they brought teams of people into that city, utilising EFT, utilising this emotional freedom technique to quell some of that stress, and it was really, really effective. Okay, give it a go. We're back, and we're talking about this very basic philosophical concept of living in the moment. Now, some of you may be familiar with the author Eckhart Tolle, who produced a publishing phenomenon with his book called The Power of Now, and a second follow-up book called A New Earth. But as is often the case, the central theme of that book was not a new idea. In fact, the wonderful Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu, 2,500 years earlier, proposed that exact concept. And I want you to think about Lao Tzu's very famous statement. He said, those of you, think about this now for yourself, those of you that live in the past will be inevitably depressed, because that's your life living in a time that's gone, you know. Oh, I wish I was back to the golden years. It's nonsense. Those of you living in the past will be depressed. Those of you living in the future, I'll be happy when this happens, will be anxious inevitably. And the only way you can experience the most important thing you're here for, which is peace and happiness, the only way to be happy and at peace is to live in the moment. And it's really the only space at which this game of life happens, is right in the moment. And the challenge becomes, how do we divorce ourselves from the 50,000 thoughts that flow through our frantic brains every single day? And I think the 50,000 is the average. I reckon maybe 150,000 whipped through my brain. And how do we tune out of that and tune into everything around us, including seriously enjoying our family and our partners, or where you are at the moment, as we are here in this beautiful scenario, looking at these 2 mountains on the farm and enjoying it, hearing the wind, hearing the person that's talking to you, hearing the birds, being in the moment, and forget this distortion of these thousands of thoughts. So what you're trying to get is to feel all as one, feel part of this world that you live in, because that's when you're living with the maximum degree of peace. And so what's been used traditionally by multiple cultures is this concept of meditation. And meditative techniques don't have to involve some kind of Indian mantra, which, you know, you could argue doesn't apply to our culture. It's just simply focus upon the breath. And the simple fact is you can't focus on it. Just try it. You can't focus. It doesn't matter how much of a multitasker you are, and you're going to do that better if you're a woman than you are a man, but you can't do both. If you're genuinely focusing on your breath, it's impossible to focus on anything else. And that gives you that little roundabout in those 50,000 thoughts that brings you back into the moment. So here's a 2-minute strategy that can help serve as a roundabout in that crazy thought traffic and give you some breathing space, some much needed breathing space. So you can just set your phone so it beeps every hour for 16 hours. And I think there's an app that does that. Someone told me the other day. You just want one beep as a reminder. And it's just 1 minute actually that's involved. It's just 3 deep breaths. So every time you hear the beep, you stop what you're doing and you take 3 deep breaths. So it's a really deep breath, and you're going to breathe from your you're going to empty it, and you're going to breathe from your stomach, not your chest. Then fill your lungs right to the top, and then fill up. That's it. Just 3 of those every hour, and you do that 16 waking hours. And what you're doing is, if you sort of understand how habits work, you're trying to create a new habit. And habits take about 10 days to 2 weeks to form actually a physiological groove that's visible in the brain as what a habit actually creates. And you're trying to create a new one. And so you're doing that every day, and it will probably take 10 days to 2 weeks, probably 2 weeks, because that's the kind of turnaround time. And at the end of 2 weeks of practicing that 16 times a day, your body starts to do it by itself. And you suddenly say, what am I feeling? You're starting to feel a bit of peace and relaxation. This breathing response induces relaxation. And of course, breathing from the gut also operates all of the lymphatic glands that run in a straight line from your gut up your chest, and you're pumping your lymph system and you're avoiding lymphatic congestion. So there's a multiple gain and a very simple strategy of 16 times a day until it becomes a habit, breathing in with those big deep breaths and breathing out slowly and breathing in 3 times every hour for 16 hours a day for a minimum of 2 weeks. Now just give that a try and see if it brings you back more often into the moment. Good luck. So the last and not the least of our top 10 2-minute tips is quite simple. It actually takes 2 seconds. And basically, I'm talking about trying to reduce your television, your screen time, basically. And that can take just this fraction of a second. That can actually prove immensely valuable. We know the facts. We've become media addicted junkies, and often there's not a lot of enlightenment, peace, or happiness to be at the mercy of the advertising industry and, of course, the ruling elite, which are now, of course, the tech titans. Now, they might prefer us to have us down on the couch, dumbed down, and apathetic about everything except sport, or overexcited about things that they've generated, which is the other side of the equation. The algorithms that detect and put you into a group where you think everyone thinks like this, and you vote for Trump or whoever, without getting too controversial. But basically, the fact is that we're here, as I've mentioned, we're here to maximize your peace and happiness during that short time that you're here. And you're not going to find that. You must have realized that, surely. I mean, you're not going to find that from your next material possession, despite what the ad hucksters would have you believe. There's no one on their deathbed who ever said, oh, I wish I'd bought more stuff and made more money. No one ever thinks that at the end. I mean, you realize that you've put your whole life in chasing that almighty dollar and that possession and whatever, and it's not really what gives you the ultimate happiness. So turn off the TV, turn off your screens, read something uplifting, play some music. That's my thing because I used to be a musician. Meditate, do something constructive other than farm work. Although sometimes I find myself quite meditative just gardening. Even though I've got the farms, I love gardening. Whatever works for you. But savour that time. Spend some more quality time with your loved ones or your children, your lovers, whatever. Many of my friends and colleagues, of course, during that horrible COVID years, they didn't want that flood of information coming through constantly. So they divorced themselves from the television, sometimes screens generally. And I haven't found anyone that said, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. There's no regrets. Particularly when we're living in this world with there's so much drama happening, maybe it's not a bad idea to reduce your time listening to that crap. It's not crap, but it's just negative constantly. It's just negativity on negativity. And negativity breeds negativity. We know the science of positive thinking. We know that positive thinking breeds. That's what the secret is. Whether you think you can or think you can't, as Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. You generate your own reality. And a world of constant repeated negativity is not good for anyone. Okay, thanks for that. I hope you enjoyed our 10 2-minute tips. There's something there for everyone. Thank you. So, you can spend many hours in front of these huge TVs. Sometimes it's worthwhile. I mean, we're watching Landline at the moment. We're watching drones, which, of course, are very much the shape of the future. But as we said, we spend too much screen time and we need to relax. Now, in my case, I used to be a musician. I paid my way through university playing music. So I've got a grand piano and I've got a whole range of instruments, and I'll just sit down and play some music and get myself into that lovely relaxed space. So, yeah, we'll turn off the TV. It takes 1 second. And it's off. Damn, I'm missing Landline. So, as I mentioned, I paid my way through university playing music. And, often I'll come down to my grand piano here. I'll put a candle and perhaps a glass of wine and just get lost in playing a little bit of music. I'm actually a bass player, not a piano player, but I write my songs on the piano, and I still write some little songs. Let's just try a little one now. It's called The Flaw and the Plan. Whatever happened here? Your face engraved in my head. I never volunteered to keep this monster fed. Days flicker past in a blur, just waiting to hear from you. How did this mindstorm occur? Raging just out of you. Cast adrift in a cruel sea. Red eyes scanning for land. Through the mist I can still see all the flaws in the plan. We take what we can. Anyway, that's the idea. Okay, we're back. And this is a little bit unusual. I was in Singapore and I was reading a paper, and there was a famous Chinese author in Singapore for some talks, and they interviewed him, and it was a little segment in English. So this guy's name is Zhongli Ba-Ren. He's a health master, a Chinese health master. And at that point, he had written this incredibly popular book, hugely popular. In fact, it had been reprinted 12 times in the first 6 months, which is kind of unparalleled. It had broken all kinds of records at that point in China. Certainly, it had captured the Chinese market. And the translation of the name roughly was self-help is better than seeking doctor's help. Of course, it's about being proactive. And it's really part of what's emerging as a global trend as people recognize that perhaps it's time to reclaim responsibility for your health and your family's health rather than hoping someone else is going to do it for you. So in his book and in his lectures around the globe, people have asked him, okay, you've got lots of strategies in there. What's the most important? And every time he says, I've got one thing. If you do nothing else, this one thing is my most important and my most researched. Now, I haven't seen the research, but this is what he's claiming. And he cites ridiculous benefits from this simple, minuscule investment of your time. And it works quite well for this argument because it literally involves 2 minutes. Now, amongst his claim, and this is pretty important in a world where 1 in 4 of us over 65 succumb to Alzheimer's. It's kind of like the Great Plague at the moment for people over 60. His contention that if you can master this 2-minute challenge, you will not get dementia. Now, that's one hell of a claim, but he's sort of got the runs on the board, and he seems to know what he's talking about. But it doesn't just stop there. You know, 2 of the largest killers on the planet, we're talking hypertension, we're talking high blood pressure, and we're talking high blood sugar, where 1 in 3 of us have got excessive blood sugar. Both of those are impacted, and so are neck and spinal diseases. And, you know, everyone's got the sore back, myself included. I grunt and groan after a weekend on the farm, hopping out of the chair. It's kind of no surprise in that context that dementia is part of that story, because we now know that hypertension and particularly high blood sugar are common precursors for the great forgetting, for this horrible disease called Alzheimer's. In fact, as I've mentioned previously, Alzheimer's is now called type 3 diabetes. So this thing, you know, it's not just an idea, it's something you can monitor. You know, you do this thing, which we're going to talk about now, and monitor with your blood pressure meter and see if it drops your blood pressure, and apparently it does. So let's just talk about it. Basically, it's really simple, and when Carl arrives shortly, Carl's going to demonstrate it. We're going to see how he goes. I'll just give you a rough idea. I don't want to prove my biological age. I want to show that I'm just a 20-year-old, which is what it can do. So basically, it just involves standing on one leg for 60 seconds. So you're standing on one leg, which is easy to do with your eyes open, but just try closing your eyes and see how long you can last. And you've got to last 60 seconds, and you've got to work your way up to that by just practicing. Just stand there. Very, very different when you close your eyes. It just transforms everything. That is so much more difficult. And basically, 1 minute with your eyes closed on one leg, eyes closed, and then 1 minute with your eyes closed on the second leg. And basically, you just work, and it's really interesting because it's claimed to be a diagnosis. Of course, there are many other things. That's become quite a craze to take these tests that will determine your biological age. And people like to say, you see celebrities online saying, you know, I did this test and I'm 60 and I showed up as a 40-year-old on my biological age. Well, this thing can basically be used as a diagnostic tool. So if you can just last 10 seconds, for example, and I won't say how long I can last, it's equivalent to a 60 to 70-year-old. So, you know, it's not much good if you're a 20-year-old and you can only last 5 seconds, and it means, you know, you've got some issues. It's really where a lifetime accumulation of imbalances have kicked in and demonstrated in that whole concept. So, so we'll see how Carl goes when he arrives. So basically, sort of like that Ayurvedic healing tradition, Chinese traditional medicine's got a lot going for it. But it's primarily concerned with this concept of balance, where basically the concept of disease appears where the various internal organisms are no longer operating in sync with each other. And we know that balance is how nature works. And this lack of coordination, which shows up when you can't stand on your one leg for 60 seconds with your eyes closed, is seen as the root cause of many problems, and the imbalance translates to a literal loss of balance in the body, which is what you're seeing. And the aim is, and it seems so simple and stupid, but if we can reclaim that balance, we can reclaim our health. So if you work your way up, you know, every time you get a chance, just have a go. Preferably not somewhere dangerous, but just have a go and see if you can build up to that 60 seconds. Now, I've seen some yoga people who can just do it immediately, which is another good argument for yoga. But it's not just the benefits that you can monitor. Your sleep will improve. There'll be more clarity of thought. Your memory is enhanced. And these things seem to be reported widely in China. As I said, I can't find studies, but yeah, sometimes anecdotal evidence is sufficient. Test it for yourself. If you've got high blood pressure, work your way up to 1 minute and watch what happens to your blood pressure. And the reports are that it will lower substantially. So there's the idea. And when Carl arrives, we'll see how he goes on the one-leg challenge. So we just realised that we forgot one thing. We forgot Carl was going to have the challenge of 60 seconds on each leg as part of our 2-minute tips to remember 1 minute on each leg and all of those potential benefits associated with it. And it's a measure of your biological age. Well, we've got a 22-year-old. Let's see how he goes. Sometimes you've got to practice this. But anyway, Carl's volunteered to have a go. So he's going to stand on his one leg with his eyes open initially, and he can balance himself just like he's doing. And now he's closing his eyes, and we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So Carl's got the biological age of a 60-year-old. We'll give him on the next leg. Okay, so you can get your balance first with your eyes open. Tell me when you want to start. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can see how hard it is. It's really, really difficult. But if you can practice and perfect it, he's on an even ground as well. I've given him an excuse. But if you can practice this, it really is something. If you can build you up, so you've got the minute on each leg, you know, I really think you are going to do well with that.